Hi! So I am back with a July wrap-up. Still haven't decided if I want to continue doing these or not, so I'm just doing so in the meantime. But yeah, what an interesting month this was. It was both great and awful in terms of books, so let's get into it. The first book that I finished this month, which I finished on the 3rd of July, is none other than Happy Place by Emily Henry. I have nothing to say other than I loved it. But yes, Happy Place. I have nothing but good things to say about it. It was absolutely fantastic. I gave it 5 stars and I love it with every fiber of my being. Can't wait for the paperback to come out so I can purchase it, and I absolutely, positively, 100% absolutely cannot wait to reread it when the paperback comes out, because it was Happy Place and Beach Read are tied. Like, I don't know what kind of crack she put into it, but my god. The next book that I finished on the 9th of July was The Housemaid by Freida McFadden. I ended up giving this one a 3.5. I did enjoy it, and it was pretty interesting, but it just wasn't necessarily my favorite thriller. I really liked the plot twist, was not expecting it, and the ending was really good, and I did end up reading the sequel as well, which I'll talk about a little bit later. But yeah, it was fun. I liked it. It just wasn't necessarily the best thriller that I read, but I definitely see the hype around it. That being said though, I feel like Never Lie deserves more hype. But the 4th book that I finished, no, not the 4th book, the 3rd book that I finished in July was Queen of Shadows by Sarah J. Maas, and I finished that on the 11th of June. I ended up giving this one 4 stars. The ending was truly what escalated that star rating, as most of the series has been. I was so excited and tense at the end with everything that happened. Not gonna go into it because of spoilers and whatever, but it was that ending, like, I didn't know what to do with myself. So it was decently good. Yeah, 4 stars, really enjoyed it. And also, little disclaimer, I'm not going into depth because I have so many long videos that I have filmed and I'm editing right now. Like, 2 of them are pre-editing, an hour or so post-editing. They'll probably be around 45 minutes. So I'm just trying to get through this as quickly as possible, make a quick short little wrap up. Like, I talk about almost all of these books anyway in reading vlogs, so this doesn't need to be that long, that intense. This is just a quick little wrap up of everything. So that's why I'm doing a bit differently this month. Next, I finish The Housemaid's Secret by Freida McFadden, which is book 2 in the Housemaid series. I ended up giving this one 4 stars as well. I liked it a lot more than the first one, and honestly, the ending is truly what made this book worthwhile for me. Basically, how this book worked was that the first 70% of the book I didn't really like, but when we got down to the nitty-gritty of the last 30%, I was absolutely enthralled, and by the end of it, I actually wanted to give this book a 5 stars. But as you know, I gave it 4 stars, and the reason for that is one of the characters in this book, half of their personality is being fatphobic and having disordered eating, and there was not a trigger warning in sight for that. I went on to Storygraph and looked at the trigger warnings. I didn't see anything in the book either, and that really upset me, and that's why I couldn't give the book 5 stars, because as we all know, I'm a believer in content warnings. I do not believe that content warnings are spoilers, because there are some things that people either don't want to read about or mentally cannot handle reading about, you know? And even for me, sometimes I'm okay reading about certain topics if I know I'm getting myself into that, you know? If I pick up a thriller book with murder in it, like, mentally I'm prepared to read about that, you know? For example, I hate gore. I'm not I hate gore. I don't watch gory movies. I hate it. I close my eyes during half of Game of Thrones. It's a whole thing. So if I know a book has gore in it, for example, I'm not gonna pick it up because that's not written for me. I'm not the audience for that, and that's fine. That's not a spoiler because it's telling me, hey, this book is just going to upset you and you're going to have a bad time. Fatphobia and disordered eating are very serious and deserve trigger warnings, and I didn't find any, and that made me very angry because I feel that it's safe to say most people, especially women, have issues with their bodies, have issues with food. We are bombarded with skinny is the best. You can only be pretty if you're skinny, which is such bullshit, just by the way. But you know, like, most if not all of us have gone through some kind of issue with eating and people telling us that our bodies aren't good enough the way that they are, and disordered eating and fat phobia should be highlighted, and there should be content warnings for those, because some people are not mentally equipped to read about those things. Some people don't want to read about those things. I don't want to read about those things, you know? So that is why it made me mad. It's not necessarily a large part of the overall story, but it's a large part of a character's personality. In that character's segment of the story, half of their story was about being skinny, essentially. And yeah, I don't support not having content warnings for those things. It came out of nowhere. And that's another thing about Freida McFadden books in general. There's fat phobia in nearly every single one of them, and I don't guess it. I don't like it. I'm not a fan of it. And I'm reading my 5th book by her right now because I just needed to pick something new up after the whole Throne of Glass saga that you'll be hearing about in the reading vlog that's coming out soon. So yeah, point is, I know that was a really long rant, but just please heed my warning that especially Housemaid Secret, but all of her books does contain a lot of that, and it's okay if you're uncomfortable reading about it. I personally felt quite uncomfortable reading about it for a lot of it. So yeah, that is my issue with, honestly, that book specifically, but her books as a whole as well. Like, it was just actually obsessing. The next book that I read it's a good one, that's what I'm gonna tell you. I gave it 3 stars, and I finished it on the 17th July. And that book that I read for the first time ever in my life is called Twilight by Stephanie Meyer. It's Twilight. You know, I love the movies so much, and I just wanted to read the books at some point. That's honestly it. I never read the books. I did own the entire series at one point, but I didn't speak English, or I spoke English well enough. I couldn't read English well enough to really comprehend most of the story. Like, it took me an hour to like read 2 pages. So I also just wasn't a reader back then, so that has a lot to do with it as well, probably. But yeah, I wanted to pick it up and get through it, and it was fun, you know? It was Twilight, so that's all I really have to say. The next book that I picked up, I finished on the 23rd of July, and that would be The Inmate by Freida McFadden, The Inmate. So far, out of all the books, excluding the one that I'm reading at this current moment, it has been my least favorite. I ended up giving it 3 stars, and the only reason it's my least favorite is because the plot twist felt a little bit too out of pocket. Like, all of her plot twists are far-fetched, but this one just felt too far-fetched. So that's mostly why it was a 3, but it was overall a good story. I'd enjoy it, and I would definitely still recommend it. But yeah, just wasn't necessarily my favorite. And then on the 24th of July, I finished Lightlark. This one, again, was 3 stars. It was fine. I did enjoy it, but I enjoyed it the same way you would enjoy a bad TV show or a Wattpad book, or like fan fiction when you were 13 or something. The story in concept was really good. It just wasn't executed very well. And that's honestly just it, I guess you could say. But yeah, that's all I have to say about that one. Excuse the lack of makeup. I'm just jumping in because I did finish 2 more books over the weekend, and I just want to quickly add them. But basically, the first book that I finished over the weekend was New Moon. This one I ended up giving a 3.5, and I gave it an extra star because this is Jacob's book, and character assassination ignored. I'm Team Jacob. I really like him. He would have been a better fit, but then he did the thing that he does in Eclipse, so we don't like him, but in my brain that doesn't happen. So also the baby thing doesn't happen either in my brain. So, but yeah, 3.5 stars. It was fine. New Moon is simultaneously my least and most favorite because nothing happens, but it's Jacob's book, so it was just a good old time, and watched all the films so I knew what to expect, and it's just been fun. So that was my review for that. And then the other book that I finished over the weekend was The Locked Door by Freida McFadden. I actually just finished it like 30 minutes ago, so I'll put my review somewhere up here, or my star rating, because I haven't decided on my star rating yet. I need to like sit with it for a little bit, but I'm assuming it'll be around like 3 to 3.5-ish, somewhere around there. And then, like I also said, I haven't given it a star yet, I haven't reviewed it yet, so this is very fresh thoughts. So if my review does change, I'll leave it down in the description with a little spoiler warning if I do talk about any spoilers. But overall, I enjoyed it. I really liked that it was short. It's 310 pages. So it took me like a week to read, but when I was reading it, I was really zooming through it. Like, you go through 10 to 30% at a time, which is really fun. And I never really intended on picking this up. I didn't want to read another Freida McFadden, but with everything that happened with Throne of Glass, if you don't know what I'm talking about, by the way, I'm uploading a Throne of Glass reading vlog for the series within the next month or two, so refer to that. But yeah, so after everything that happened, I just didn't feel like reading a fantasy at that exact moment. So I was like, okay, I don't feel like reading a fantasy. I don't feel like reading anything like overly intense. I just want a quick, light-hearted, can kind of turn my brain off read. And nothing on my shelf really fit that category. And I had like 2 weeks of Kindle Unlimited left at that point. So I just went through Kindle Unlimited, saw what my options were, and I ended up just picking up that one because, one, I didn't even know what I wanted to read, so I kind of just gave my boyfriend the options, like, what about this one? What about this one? What about this one? And that one's the one that he thought was the most interesting. And then, in addition to that, it was either a thriller or a rom-com, and I didn't feel like reading a rom-com. I just haven't been really in a romance mood these past month or two, so, and that's kind of where I'm at. And that's why I ended up picking that one up. So it was not on my radar at all. And honestly, love Freida. Love her work. 5 of her books back to back is a bit much though. So that was my mistake. But that being said, this book or any of the books that I read by her have not been bad. I've just noticed the last 2 books I've had kind of like Freida fatigue. Not necessarily even mystery thriller, but just like Freida fatigue. So yeah, that's where I'm personally at. It was good though. I for certain thought that I figured out the twist, but at the end of the day I didn't. That being said though, I will give myself credit because the bad person, the plot twist in all of her books usually is like you find out who the bad person is, right? So when the plot twist happened and we found out who the actual bad person was, that was a suspect of mine, but only for a very brief time period, and then I kind of zoned onto other characters. So I do give myself that little point because before I've been completely, entirely incorrect in every single way possible. So I'm gonna give myself a point for actually having thought of that character, even though I ended up ticking them off. That being said, also, plot twist a bit far-fetched. I'm gonna write it in the review in the description because it is spoiler and I really don't feel like guessing into it in here. But the reveal of the plot twist I found a bit unbelievable. But yeah, check the review if you've read it if you want to know my full thoughts. And then I do also have to say, with this book, in my mind, I had an idea of what the plot twist would be, and it would have been very interesting if I were correct in that way. But again, I'll talk more about it in the description because it's spoilers. But yeah, overall, I did enjoy it. I will not be picking up another Freida McFadden for a while. I need a break from her. But she's a wonderful author, and all 5 books that I've read of hers I would recommend, which if you haven't seen the other videos, I definitely recommend going to watch those reading vlogs or plot breakdowns. But the books that I read is Never Lie, The Housemaid, The Housemaid's Secret, The Inmate, and The Locked Door, all very good. My favorite was Never Lie, but yeah, would recommend, did enjoy it, and despite the fact that I'm a bit Freida McFadden out, it was what I needed. I needed something light and quick. Well, it's not light, it's about murder, but I needed something quick, interesting, like complex enough to keep me interested, but also easy enough to not have to learn basically a different language like you do with fantasy books. So it was just the perfect little book to pick up, and I am happy I read it. I'm sad that I don't have more time on Kindle Unlimited because I did almost pick up The Perfect Couple, and I kind of want to pick that one up, but I don't have enough time to read that one. I have like a week, so that's unfortunate, but it's whatever. I'll get over it. I'll survive. I'm gonna go back to the previous clips where I do the outro. And then in terms of DNFs, I did actually DNF 3 books this month, but I'm gonna be talking about them in other vlogs and I don't really want to spoil them, so I'm not gonna mention what they are here because you're gonna find out what they are in other videos anyway. But I did DNF 3 and I'm very sad about all 3 of them. So that is why, you see why it's like a good and bad month. Like I had a lot of good reads, but then I had 3 DNFs that I really am upset about, so it was fine. It was a fine month. But yeah, let me know how your July went. Was it like mine where it was high highs and low lows, or did you have a pretty steady month? If you like me or my videos, I would really appreciate a like, comment, and subscribe if you feel like it. I hope you have a wonderful day. Thank you so much. Bye.